Have you ever sat there, staring at the phone after it rings, your heart lifts, because it's your child calling, and within 30 seconds, you already know. They need something, a favor, money, help with the kids, advice they may not even listen to. It's not really a call to ask how you are, not to talk or share or connect. It's a transaction, thinly veiled as a conversation. You feel it before they even finish their first sentence. And even though you love them deeply, fiercely, there's a little ache that starts to build. A quiet sense of being used, or maybe just unseen, as if you're no longer the parent they want to share life with, but the one they need when something goes wrong. You hang up. Tell yourself not to take it personally, but something lingers, a heaviness, a sense that maybe you've become a tool in their life, not a presence. And still, the next time they call, you answer, because that's what love does, right? But what if love, real love, doesn't mean always being available on demand? What if, instead of making you a better parent, that pattern is quietly draining your spirit and teaching them that your time is not valuable, that you're not valuable unless you're helping? That's the painful truth that Nicole came to realize. She's 73 now, and for years, her son, Jason, only called when he was in a jam, car trouble, short on rent, needed someone to watch the kids because his sitter canceled. And every time, Nicole dropped everything. She gave, she rearranged, she paid. But she started to notice that on holidays, the calls didn't come. On her birthday, the texts were late or forgotten. No real conversations, no check-ins just to ask how she was doing. No visits unless there was a problem to solve. At first, she thought maybe this was just what life was like when your kids are grown. They're busy. They have jobs, families, responsibilities. She didn't want to be that kind of mom who nags or complains. But inside, she felt like a spare tire. Something useful, but only when needed, stored away until the next emergency. One evening, after sending Jason money for the third time that year and receiving nothing more than a brief, "Thanks, Mom," she sat alone in her living room. And something broke inside, not a dramatic kind of breaking, but a quiet one, a slow collapse of all the excuses she'd made. And that's when she decided to do one small thing differently. The next time Jason called, she listened. And when he asked for help again, another last-minute emergency, she took a deep breath and said, "I love you, but not this time." There was silence on the other end of the line. Not anger, not yelling, just surprise. He didn't know what to say, because this was new. This wasn't the mother who always showed up, always gave, always said yes, but it was still her, just a version of her that had started to honor her own time. Nicole told me later. It was the hardest sentence I've ever said, but also the most freeing, because here's what no one tells you. When your child only calls when they need something, the answer isn't to cut them off. It's to remember you are not a service, you are a soul. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for them and for yourself is to gently pause that pattern, not out of punishment, but out of self-respect. Brian went through something similar. His daughter, Tiffany, was a single mom, juggling work and parenting. He adored her and his grandkids. But over the years, their relationship turned into a running list of errands. Could he pick up groceries? Could he take the kids to school? Could he watch them overnight? He always said yes. Until one week, he realized he hadn't had a full day to himself in over a month. So he decided to do something he hadn't done in years. He planned a weekend away, just a short trip, a quiet cabin with a lake view. He didn't ask permission. He didn't explain. He just went, and wouldn't you know it, Tiffany called in a panic that Saturday. Her sitter had canceled again. She needed help. She assumed he was home. But he wasn't. He answered kindly, "I'm actually away this weekend, sweetheart." She was silent for a moment. "Oh, okay." That moment changed everything. Not because he said no, but because he gently reminded her that he had a life, too. And that's what this is about. It's not about withholding love. It's not about being cold or dramatic or teaching anyone a lesson. It's about doing one simple thing once, maybe even softly, and seeing what happens. It's saying, "I'm not available this time." It's deciding to spend the weekend doing what fills you up. It's pausing before you wire the money, not because you don't care, but because you do. You care about the life you have left to live. You care about your own dignity, your own peace. And yes, it may surprise them. It may even upset them at first. But the ones who love you, the ones who are capable of growth, they'll adjust. Because sometimes people don't realize how much they've been taking until the giving stops. And when that giving comes back later on your terms, with balance and warmth, that's when real respect is born. Because love that's built on self-neglect isn't love. It's quiet desperation. But love that flows from self-respect, that's where everything begins to shift. There's a reason why it feels so heavy when someone only reaches out in need. It's because deep down, every human being craves connection that's mutual, not transactional. That craving doesn't fade with age. In fact, the older we get, the more we long for conversations that feel real, time that feels cherished, and relationships that see us as whole people, not just what we can give. But here's the quiet trap many fall into. The longer we say yes to one-sided love, the more invisible we become within it. And it doesn't happen overnight. It's gradual. It happens the moment you pick up a call. Knowing it's not a call for you, it's a request, a favor, a crisis. It happens when you bite your tongue instead of saying, "Can we just talk? Can you ask me how I'm doing for once?" But you don't say it because you're afraid of pushing them away, afraid of seeming ungrateful, afraid of losing even the crumbs of connection you still have. Amber knows that fear well. She's 68, widowed, with 2 grown sons. Her oldest, Brandon, only ever reached out when something broke his car, his finances, his relationships. The calls were quick, rushed, full of stress. Amber would drop everything, her plans, her rest, her peace. She told herself it was love, but it was also fear. Fear that if she stopped saying yes, he would stop coming to her altogether. Then one day, she was sitting in her garden when the phone rang. She looked at the screen and saw his name. Her heart knew it was another request. And in that quiet moment, surrounded by sunlight and birdsong, she did something new. She let it ring. Not out of cruelty, not out of spite. She just let it ring. And something strange happened. Her heart didn't break. The world didn't end. She felt still. She felt, for the first time in a long while, like someone who could choose. That's where everything begins to change, when you realize you have the right to choose again, not just react. Because love that's healthy is not afraid of boundaries. Love that's real doesn't disappear when you pause to take care of yourself. Amber eventually called her son back. But this time, she didn't immediately say yes. She listened. She offered empathy. But she also said, "I can't help with this today. I've got plans." And she did. Her plans were to rest, to take care of her aching back, to watch a film she'd been wanting to see. That counted. At first, Brandon was confused. "Since when do you say no?" She smiled gently. "Since I started remembering I have a life, too." That one sentence planted a seed. It didn't fix everything, but it began a new pattern, a new energy. Because here's something people don't talk about enough. When you shift, others feel it, even if you never raise your voice. The moment you stop overextending, the moment your presence becomes something you offer, not something people assume respect, begins to take root. It happened with Brian, too. After his weekend away, something clicked. He started setting small boundaries, not rigid walls, just simple pauses before saying yes. And without even intending to, he became more present in his own life. He read more, started a small woodworking project, reconnected with an old friend he hadn't spoken to in years. And here's the beautiful thing, his daughter, Tiffany, started calling just to talk. The conversations weren't rushed anymore. She asked questions. She slowed down, not because he demanded it, but because she felt the shift. Her father was no longer waiting at the end of the phone line, always ready to drop everything. He was living, and something about that was magnetic. That's the quiet truth. People respond to the energy we carry. When we show up full of self-respect, we stop attracting relationships that feed off our emptiness. Nicole learned this too. After her not this time moment with Jason, there was tension, a few days of silence. Then, a single message. "Mom, can we talk?" They met for coffee. He was guarded at first. She stayed calm. She told him gently, "I'll always be your mother, and I'll always love you. But I can't be the person who fixes everything all the time. It's starting to hurt me." There were tears, not of anger, but of recognition. Jason said quietly, "I didn't realize how much I've been leaning on you. I just always knew you'd say yes." She replied, "I know, and maybe that's what needs to change." That one conversation didn't erase the years of imbalance, but it began a new chapter, A chapter where Nicole no longer needed to be needed in order to feel worthy, because that's the root of it, isn't it? So many of us confuse being needed with being loved, and that's understandable. For decades, you raised children who depended on you for everything, and for a long time, that role was your identity. But you are not just a helper, not just a safety net, not just a backup plan. You are a human being, with needs, with boundaries, with a heart that deserves gentleness, too. And when you begin to honor that softly, quietly, without resentment, everything begins to bloom. You don't have to beg for balanced love. You don't have to earn rest. You don't have to prove your worth through exhaustion. You only need to remember one thing. If someone only calls when they need something, that's not a relationship, it's a pattern. And you have the right to change that pattern, not with shouting, not with blame, just with a pause, a breath, a sentence as simple as, "I can't today." And then, wait, watch what happens. There's something so unexpectedly powerful about a calm, honest no, not a dramatic rejection. Not a cold shoulder, just a soft, steady pause that says, "I love you, but I love me, too." That's where dignity begins. In the space between your automatic yes and your considered answer. In the space where you no longer rush to be the fixer, but instead ask yourself, is this mine to carry? Melissa, who once spent every weekend watching her grandkids, started reclaiming her Saturdays. The first few times she said she wasn't available, she felt nervous, a little guilty, the kind of guilt that doesn't come from doing something wrong, but from doing something new. And yet, something beautiful happened. With time, her daughter stopped assuming. She started asking, and even better, she started saying, "Thank you" more sincerely, not out of formality, but because she had finally noticed how much Melissa had been doing. For the first time in years, appreciation replaced expectation. That's what changes when you stop living in the background of someone else's life. You step into view, not to demand attention, but to take up the space that was always yours. It's funny how subtle the shift can be. You don't need to raise your voice or explain yourself over and over. Often, it's the energy that changes first. Your presence becomes different, more grounded. You're no longer waiting by the phone. You're not anxiously checking your messages. You're not filling the silence with worry or self-doubt. You're just living. And the people around you sense that, even if they don't know how to name it. They feel it. That's what happened with Eric. He used to feel like he was always on standby, especially for his son, who treated him more like a resource than a parent. One evening, Eric made a quiet decision. He turned his phone on silent, not to ignore anyone, but to protect his evening. He poured himself a drink, put on a jazz record, and simply sat with himself. The next day, his son left a message, "Hey, Dad, just needed a quick favor." "Call me," Eric called back the next morning, calm, unapologetic, and said, "I missed your call last night. I had something planned." That was all. No guilt, no long story, just presence. And that presence began to rebuild something, not just in the relationship, but inside Eric himself. Because when you stop being the emergency contact for every inconvenience, you start being the heartbeat of your own life again. You start doing things that feed your soul. And here's the beautiful irony. When you fill yourself up first, you actually have more to give. Not out of duty, out of joy, out of wholeness. And those around you, they start leaning in differently. It's what happened to Laura. Her son, Justin, had become what she called a crisis caller. She would only hear from him when something was falling apart. No "how are you?" No small talk. Just, "Mom, I need your help." One day, when he called in the middle of yet another mess, Laura said something simple, "I want to be part of your life, not just your emergencies." There was a long silence. Then Justin said, "I didn't even realize that's what I've been doing." And it hit her. Sometimes, people treat us the way we've trained them to, not out of malice, but because we've never asked for more. When Laura started setting limits, not just with her time, but with her emotional labor, the entire relationship began to shift. Justin began checking in more, just to talk. He started sending her pictures of the kids, inviting her to things that weren't just about help, but about connection. She didn't force that change, she allowed it. Because the moment you stop chasing love and start standing in self-respect, you become someone others want to come closer to, not because they need something, but because they feel something in your presence that makes them slow down, listen, reflect. You stop being a safety net. You become a lighthouse, a steady glow in the distance, not chasing, not begging, just shining. And here's the tender truth. Not every child will respond the way we hope. Some may resist. Some may stay distant. Some may not understand the shift at all. But the point of this transformation is not to control them. It's to reclaim you. Because your life is not over at 60, or 70, or 80. You are not here just to serve. You are not just a helper in someone else's script. You are still the main character of your own story. And the love that's meant for you, the kind that's mutual, respectful, nurturing, it will rise to meet you. Sometimes slowly, but surely it may arrive in small ways. A longer conversation, a thank you that feels genuine, a moment where they ask you how you are, and wait to hear the answer. These small things, they begin to appear when you stop filling every gap with overgiving. When you leave space for respect to grow. You don't need to be loud to be heard. You don't need to shut people out to set a boundary. You only need to stop participating in a pattern that makes you feel small and start participating in one that honors the love you've carried for so long. You've given enough. Now it's your turn to be received. If you've stayed with me this far, I want to thank you from my heart to yours. Because watching something like this isn't always easy. It brings up old feelings. It stirs memories you might have tucked away just to keep peace. It might even remind you of moments when your love was taken for granted, when your heart felt more like a safety net than a home. But being here, sitting with these words, shows me something powerful about you. It shows me that even after everything you've carried, after all the times you said yes when you were tired, after all the times you gave, even when you were hurting, you still care. You still want connection, but this time, you want it from a place of wholeness, of self-respect, of love that flows both ways. And that's where healing begins. Maybe you've lived most of your life thinking love means never saying no. That being a good parent means being endlessly available, that the more you give, the more they'll love you. But now, something inside you knows different. You've started to understand that love without balance isn't love, it's a burden. And you are not here to be burdened. You are here to be respected. You are here to be remembered, not just needed. You are here to feel joy again, not only through what you give to others, but through what you finally give back to yourself. So if you've ever felt like you only exist in the background of your child's life, if you've ever heard from them only when they're in trouble, only when they're short on time or money or energy, and rarely when they just want to hear your voice, if you've ever finished a phone call and felt emptier than when it started, then I want you to hear this as clearly as possible. You are allowed to pause that pattern. You are allowed to stop filling every silence with yes. Of course, you are allowed to say, I'm not available this time, and mean it with love, not spite. And no, you're not pushing anyone away. You're simply stepping back into your own space, your own worth. You are not wrong for wanting to feel valued, for wanting conversations that go both ways, for wanting to be remembered outside of a need. So if this message touched something in you, I would love to hear from you. You're not alone in this, not even a little. Has your relationship with your children changed over the years? Do they only seem to call when something is wrong? Have you tried setting boundaries? What helped you and what was hard? Please, share your story in the comments, not just for me, but for someone else reading quietly right now, hoping to feel seen. You never know who your story might help. And if this video helped you feel understood, if it made you feel like someone finally put your feelings into words, I'd be honored if you'd click subscribe, not just to follow this channel, but to stay part of a growing space where older voices matter, where experience is honored, where you're not treated like someone fading into the background, but like someone who still has something powerful to say. Because you do, this is not the end of your story. This is the chapter where you stop being called only in times of need and start being valued simply because you exist. And if that feels far away right now, please don't lose hope. It begins with one change, one pause, one moment where you answer the phone, hear the familiar ask, and gently say, I can't this time, not as a punishment, but as an act of self-love. Say it once, just once, and watch what happens. They may surprise you, but even if they don't, you will surprise yourself because you'll feel stronger, lighter, clearer. You'll feel the quiet power of a person who no longer begs for appreciation, but who walks in the calm confidence that they deserve it. Always have, always will. So take a deep breath. My friend, this is not goodbye. This is you beginning again.